who are you? How did you get into Star Wars, and what does it mean to you?
Well, I am a nerd, which doesn't necessarily, it's not really a requirement these days, which I think is cool, actually. A lot of nerds are like, no, this is only for, a certain segment of the population. I'm happy for everybody to love it because that means more content because, people pay for tickets and merch and stuff. So I got into it because, well, I was born like months before the first movie came out, and was probably, I don't remember, at 6 months old, but I know my family took me to a drive-in movie. We don't have those anymore. So drive-in theater to watch that one, and then later to watch Empire. I do remember Empire. I wasn't very old, but so from the very beginning, it was really just loving these movies. I didn't, we didn't have DVDs and Blu-rays back then, and we didn't even have we were too poor to own a VCR, so I had to go to my friend's house to watch the tapes, and sometimes it came on TV. So there was that, and then as they re-released into the theaters, and my friends in college were all Star Wars nerds. Right as I got out of college, The Phantom Menace came out, and it was just so exciting to have more content. So I've been really a fan ever since.
Awesome.
As a kid.
So you're part of the original, the woman in a monkey mask with the goggles on, like that was the Emperor. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That dude. So when a 12-year-old says, I've been a Star Wars fan my whole life, I just kind of giggle like, yeah, me too. A little bit longer, but that's fine. We can come in whenever we come in. It's good.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and how about you, Kev?
Me. I am, as far as like just getting into Star Wars, I was so young that I do not remember how I got into Star Wars. All I know is that my family was always like very much into it. So I remember watching them with my dad, my brother, and, to me, Star Wars signifies a lot of, family ties, family bonding for me. So, and actually, my brother would have been here, but he like I, kind of forgot what day it was, and he had a whole bunch of other stuff going on, so he wasn't able to make it. But yeah, so it's like, I got tattoos of Star Wars stuff all over my arms and everything else, but to me, it's more than pop culture. It signifies all of the memories that I have with my dad and with my brother, going to the theaters to see the new ones come out, then going to the theaters to see the original trilogy re-released. And, I had already seen the original trilogy long before the prequels even came out. And, so like my brother, like Kev here, I was, excited for the prequels to come out. And then I lived through watching them get hated, like, very badly. However, at the same time, I defended them then the same way that I defend the sequels now, because it's history repeating itself. And some of us who have been around a long enough time have seen it happen before, and we're seeing it happen again.
This too shall pass is what I tell people.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Yep. I thought we were going into a, all this has happened before and it shall happen again.
Oh yeah. Whenever they release something new, whatever the old thing was that everybody hated is magically, for some reason, amazing, and they ruined it with whatever the new thing is. It's the cycle
going
of the
on
fandom.
since Empire, right? Like,
Yep.
Darth Vader's lying. You couldn't be Luke's father, and then it was, Return of the Jedi. I can't believe teddy bears saved the whole galaxy. Like, shut up and enjoy it. It's such a fun movie. Like, that's not the point, to make it like this perfect reality, right? It's about the epic stories, about the characters, about the struggles. That's really what it's about. So
exactly. And I am I'm like you guys, but I think I might be a little bit younger. I don't know. I'm 32.
Oh, dude, you and I are the same age. I'm 32 as well.
Okay. So for me,
I just grew up with a 40-year-old brother. So my brother's 8 years older than me, and he basically kept me right in the loop of everything that was going on. So it's like, yeah, I'm 32, but some of my experience ranks right up there with a 40-year-old.
I sort of know how that goes, because I'm 8 years older than my little brother, and like I'm hearing him tell He'd tell jokes
kind
that
of
I
bring him
tell
along.
people, like, stop it. That's me. That's not you. Stop
Stop it. Stop it.
Get
Get
some help.
But yeah, so for me, I also I grew up with it. You know, my mom was a closet nerd. My dad was not. And so I grew up mostly with a VHS tape of Empire Strikes Back. That was my thing until the re-releases started coming out, and then we got the prequels and stuff. But I didn't have the same gap that someone that saw them originally would have had, right? My gap was growing up with this movie and then immediately jumping into re-releases and then immediately jumping into prequels. So I find it really fascinating how, you know, just depending on what time you got into it, you may have different views.
Yep.
For me, like one thing, it's a little off topic, one thing I thought was absolutely beautiful was at the last Star Wars Celebration when Ahmad Best came on, the amount of love that everyone showed him, because most of that audience grew up with Jar Jar Binks and loved him because they were kids when he came out.
Right.
And that, I mean, that role almost destroyed his life, almost ended his life. But to see the amount of love poured out, you realize, no, like Lucas was right about that character, and the amount of love that he was shown, it was just beautiful. But
that's
anyways,
awesome to hear. No, that's really great to hear because of, like, it ruined a lot of people's careers. Natalie Portman even said it almost ruined her career because nobody would answer her calls. Nobody wanted her in their movie, even though it was the, she's in the highest grossing films. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Those guys,
Jake Lloyd,
it's such a horrible time.
I hope to see something, you know, like what happened with Ahmad Best, have something like that happen with Jake Lloyd, because he needs it, man. Like, that guy, he's still in and out of prison, in and out of rehab. Like, his whole life has been ruined because he was a kid and everybody just, they just harped on him for doing everything that George Lucas told him to do.
Exactly what Lucas told him to do, yeah. And I thought he was great, honestly.
And so did I. The cool thing, though, is we as a community, I feel like we can pull them out. You know what I mean? Like, I feel, you know, giving up enough people, enough momentum, we can absolutely do it.
Well, and I'm hoping we have the same kind of effect on, like, Kelly Marie Tran and others who've just been hated and just, like, misogynistic and racist remarks to her, which I think is horrible. And so that's another reason why I defend. Like, anytime somebody hates on Rose, I go after them because there's no reason to hate on the character. You may not like her, that's fine, but don't hate on her, because now that's ruined that actress's life in some ways. I mean, she's still going to do great things, but I know it was hard. I mean, she and Daisy Ridley both quit social media completely in 2017 because they're just like, we're done. We're never coming back to this. That's pretty sad.
And it's like, why? Why do you like this? That's always my question. But speaking of which, just jumping into, you know, these sequels, looking at the three films as a whole, you know, start with Mr. Conrad here. Who are your favorite characters, and what character moments like really spoke to you?
Honestly, the funniest thing is that, I mean, my all-time favorite character of all of Star Wars is not even from the main media. Canon, yes, but not main media. My
Salacious Crumb,
character
gotcha.
of all of Star Wars is Salacious B. Crumb, 100%. Boss Nass. No, my favorite character is Ahsoka Tano, 100%. I relate to Ahsoka very strongly. Little background on me. At one point, I actually was a youth minister. And some things that I won't go into like massive long details, but there was some events that happened at the church that I was working at that were not my fault at all, had nothing to do with me, and the blame got shifted my direction. So I walked away. And from that moment, I can't say that I lost faith, but I lost faith in that organization. Very much like Ahsoka lost faith in the Jedi Order. However, I walked away and I still retained my light, retained all of the lessons that I had learned, everything that I had gone through. and I continue to try and use everything that I learned to help show other people love, to show other people compassion, and to help people, move forward the way that they should, or be loved the way that they should, regardless of being affiliated with a church or not. I still try to take those lessons and retain my light. Again,
That's awesome.
Much like Ahsoka Tano did, because Ahsoka never fell to the dark side. Some people mistakenly say that Ahsoka's a gray Jedi, but she's not.
No.
She never even bordered on going dark. She just didn't remain affiliated with the Jedi Order. She's like everything the Jedi should be without the dogma. And that's it's one of the reasons that I just respect and relate to that character so much.
That's awesome. I like that a lot.
So excited to see her in live action. That's going to be
I know, it's going to be great.
Fantastic. I'm about to read the book now that Clone Wars is done. I haven't read the book yet, but I'm going to.
It's good. I will warn you, and this will be spoiler free, but I will warn you, there are, especially at the very beginning, some continuity errors. Just overlook them.
It's okay. It's okay.
They're not enough to ruin anything. It's just like, for instance, and I can tell you that too without it being a spoiler. Her interaction with Maul, completely different, and she vividly describes more than once the colors of the lightsabers, and in the novel they were still green, as where in the show they were blue. Very, very minor inconsistencies that I can easily overlook. Or the way that I like to look at it is I say, all right, well, this entire novel is spoken like from her perspective. So let's say that it's just memory, and that she, as we are, sometimes you forget. Here, I'll be right back. Give me a second.
Sure. Yeah, how about you? Other Kevin?
So, yeah, they call me J-Kev, by the way, just to keep it straight.
J-Kev, gotcha.
I use that initial on all my socials because it was just a lot easier than getting my actual name without the first initial. So, in terms of sequel characters, there's so many that I like. My favorite, though, I'm going to just start off with that. I really like Rey Skywalker. I always liked her okay, but it wasn't until the final film of the trilogy where I was like, I love this character. Like, she surpassed in that trilogy each chapter to me, like, my expectations. It's one of the reasons why I try to help explain things when people talk about how she's such a Mary Sue and she had no character arc, and like,
we're talking about this.
It's such a deep character arc.
It's so deep, and it's when people, they don't understand like inner turmoil and how it's not just external factors and pain, like losing a limb. Oh, that would make her a Skywalker. No, that would make you complain that it's even more like the other movies. Then it's just an issue of like, she had this great struggle internally, but people don't relate to that as much, I guess, because maybe they haven't grown as much. I mean, that's kind of my feeling as somebody who's been spending my whole life trying to improve myself and having not had the best, childhood in some ways, not blaming my parents for anything, but just because they were great, the best that they could be, but there were other factors, and things that were rough. I can't imagine having been left as a kid as an orphan slave on a planet to scavenge through the trash to live, right? So I just, like, my heart goes out to her. I have kids her age in the first movie, like now they're her age. And I think, I would love to adopt that kid and like save her. But
when you see them put her hand in it, and that's Unclark Plutt's hand that's holding her as a child, and you're like, that's probably not good.
Oh yeah. No wonder she learned how to fight really early. Like,
oh yeah.
Those staff skills are pretty awesome. I like Han in every movie that he's in. I really relate to his sort of snark and just general overall attitude. I love Luke. A lot of people hate on Luke in The Last Jedi, but I love his whole arc.
No, I loved it.
This idea that somehow he's supposed to just be the old, and Mark Hamill's actually come out since his initial reactions and said this. Like, he says, I was actually wrong. Now that I've thought about it and watched those movies again, it's why be the old boring kind of guide that you are in every movie? Like, that's what Yoda was. That's what Obi-Wan was. They didn't grow in those movies, but Luke did. Like, you can have more than one character have an arc. That's called complexity. Like I loved it as a guy who's getting closer, but not quite to, old Luke's age. I'm maybe a decade shy or so. I know what it's like to have 30 years to grow and change, and how it can also beat on you. And he had some rough moments. He had the whole weight of the galaxy on him. So that's a long way of saying I love his arc. I love how he ended it. And I love that Rey helped him to get there. Like, we can learn from the young. I don't go into these debates with younglings and, say, I'm old and you're young, so what I say is right and what you say is wrong. Anybody can be very intelligent and see things from a different point of view, which I think is great. And that's what Rey did for Luke.
That's awesome. I gotta say, I'm a little mad because you partially stole mine, because Luke is mine. The complexity of that character, and like you said, he learned from Rey. If you look at the older movies, they didn't learn from Luke. They were like, no, you have to go kill him. Go kill that guy. Didn't tell him that was your father. Right. Just go kill him. Don't worry about who he is or his relationship to you.
They're still making the same mistakes.
So
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, sweetheart.
And so, how he was still that same farm boy who rode up in the elevator saying, I'm not going to fight you guys. And they're like, yeah, but we might hurt your friends. And then he goes, no, and then tries to kill him. And then stops and says, no, I'm not going to fight you anymore. And then he says, okay, I'll go find your sister. And then he says, no, and then tries to fight him. It just happens over and over again. And so
I love it. I love it. I love it so much. I'm not going to fight you. Well, we're going to kill your friends. Okay, I might fight you.
Yeah. And
wait,
all
no, I'm not going to fight you.
Luke
I'm going to get your sister.
Like, he would never think about that.
I might fight you.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But like how Luke with Ben, he said,
he would absolutely think about that.
He's never thought about that. There's no way the guy, even, I forget the name of the actor that does Darth Maul's voice in the Clone Wars.
Yes. Sam Witwer. I got you.
Yeah. So I saw that interview with him. He's like, there's no way that guy would do that. Well, man, you missed the details. Like, I did a video that was side by side, like Luke hacking away at Vader. No, until he cuts his arm off again. And he's just like, he finally looks at his own arm. He's like, okay, now I got to stop. But he was just that close to like murdering that man, his dad.
And then when you look at if you look at all the interactions between Luke and Yoda, and then, from both Empire and Jedi, and then you go watch The Last Jedi, oh my goodness, Rey shows up to this planet. Here, we need a Jedi to come fight with us to end this. And it's like Luke saying, I'm looking for a great warrior. And Yoda saying, warriors do not make one great.
Right.
And you're like, oh, man, like the way these things hit so hard.
The thing. I mean, I literally made a video about that, actually. And there was a little bit of trolling going on in my intent of how I posed the video.
As one does.
I said, I was like, I could finally get behind some of this sequel hate, I think, because Luke would never throw his saber like this, and I threw the video clip in. And I was like, Luke would never do that. That's not Luke at all. And then I played the scene from Return of the Jedi where he looks and says never and just throws his lightsaber forward. I was like, a Jedi's weapon deserves more respect. Come on. Like, he has never respected that blade.
That was the first video of yours.
His father's blade, he never respected any of it. But that's the thing, though. Like, and then, I had people in my comment section talking about, well, it's the manner in which he did it. Luke wouldn't have done, it was so passe. It was so just, tongue-in-cheek, throw it over your shoulder. It was done for a gag, for a laugh. And I'm like, okay, that might be the case. But read into it and see the context that was given later. That moment, it was meant to make you look at the screen and go, what the heck? And that's exactly what it did to me. I was like, what? I was not expecting that. What are we getting at here? And then later on down, as you see why Luke was how Luke was, it made more sense. In the same way, like you were mentioning about in Empire. He gets there, and Yoda Grand Master Yoda, the wise, beautiful, wonderful Yoda that we know.
I laugh hysterically every time I watch it.
Is sitting there beating R2-D2 with a stick and stealing Luke's stuff.
He's like, how do you get so big eating food of this kind?
Yeah, I love him.
I laugh hysterically every time I see it.
He sits there and starts beating the crap out of R2. I'm like, dude, you know R2. And people are talking about how like the original trilogy and the prequels had no continuity errors. I'm like, that right there. R2 couldn't have been like, hey, this is him.
Owning any droids?
Hey, this is him. Yeah. I don't seem to remember owning a droid.
Yeah.
Wow, the disrespect on R4. Thank you, Obi-Wan. No. And another good one was when Leia talks about remembering her early childhood with her mother. Your mom was dead. Your mama was dead.
Well, so
she
that
died in childbirth.
That one I do have a video on. She specifically says that it's mostly feelings and images.
Yep.
And so you're like, okay, so you don't have any solid, tangible memories.
That's fair.
Gotcha.
But Luke doesn't have any.
And don't get me wrong, that's not fair. But my point is simply this: that yes, there are answers for all of those things, but there's answers for the same things in the sequels too. It's just people like to nitpick. You know what I mean?
1000%. One last thing that really struck me about Luke too. Well, actually, I have to say two things. Is one, his end was the most fitting of what a true Jedi should be. He was not a warrior. He was not killing people. I know people say they wanted to see him pull Star Destroyers out of the sky. That wouldn't be Luke. That wouldn't be what a Jedi would do.
He did not him.
He did the ultimate pacifist act and protected everyone that he loved and cared about with everything that he had. And, you know, the very first time he gets introduced to this grander universe is Princess Leia speaking to him over a projection. The last thing he does is save her over a projection. I don't. It's the whole thing is just beautiful.
It's to quote George Lucas, it's like poetry. It rhymes.
Exactly.
But honestly, and that's another thing right there. And I know this isn't on this topic, but it's definitely a topic that I know we're getting to because a lot of our, you know, what we plan on speaking on is about the hate for the sequels. And I think a lot of people struggle so much with internalized misogyny. They don't realize that their thought process is sexist, but it is. I made a video on it a long time ago, well, not a long time ago, but several weeks ago, that I called it secondhand sexism, where you may not be sexist yourself, but other people who have convinced you of these ideas about certain characters. And a prime example, Jacob made a video about this once, is, you know, what you were just saying. You were just saying people said that they wanted to see Luke Skywalker pull Star Destroyers out of the sky with the Force and all of this. So what you're telling me is that the problem with Luke Skywalker is that he's not overpowered. But the problem with Rey, who has only shown an equal power level to pretty much every other Jedi, is overpowered. Is too much, too strong. You know what I mean? So I'm like, how are you not seeing that that's potentially a sexist thought? You want the guy to be mega hella strong, but the female who shows a good power level, and it is explained if you're paying attention why she is that way. Well, she's a Mary Sue.
Just real quick, I didn't see that original video that you made. I did see someone replying to that video, and I laughed hysterically. It was something about Rey being overpowered, and then you compared her to Anakin being 9 years old.
Gotcha.
Being 9 years old and building his pod racer. Yeah, building pod racer and all this stuff. And the response was, well, because he was raised as a mechanic. And you're like, no.
So was Rey.
He was raised as a junker. That was a junkyard. That was a pick and pull that they were running. It was the same thing. The only thing is she was 10 years older.
Right.
But
yep.
and had built a whole spaceship from scrap and had already piloted it, which we've learned later. So, and well, those stories shouldn't have, you know, details from books to be required to understand them. Well, first of all, they don't, but every Star Wars movie from the beginning, I mean, the first Star Wars movie was preceded by the book. It came out when the movie was supposed to come out in 76. And the movie finally came out in 77. It almost didn't happen. It's a fascinating story. But the books have always been there to supplement the knowledge from, and we take for granted that Clone Wars, people your age especially, I mean, well, and younger than you guys, like the Clone Wars have been around since a little bit after the prequels. Those kids that actually grew up with it, like my kids' age, they just take it for granted. Like, oh, but I already knew the movies. Well, but you have the context because of other media.
Yeah.
Yeah. Luke's very first time in an X-Wing was in combat through this crazy trench against the most powerful military.
Yeah. Oh, but he was a great pilot. I said that's like a Tesla versus, you know, the SpaceX program. Just because they're both made by, you know, Elon Musk doesn't mean that it's identical to driving it, right?
Yep. I'm pretty good on a skateboard. You think I could be a professional rally racer?
I shot womp rats. Yeah. Same thing with Anakin. He accidentally saved Naboo. It didn't bother me. I mean, it was like, okay,
it didn't bother
this
me
is
at
a
all.
little bit much, but like, it's a fun story. Just let it be a story.
I think a lot of people miss that too. Like, because I make a lot of videos that are, you know, comparing the Mary Sues. But the thing is, I'm like, look, I'm not trying to say that these other guys were Mary Sues or whatever the heck you want to call them, overpowered, whatever. I'm just saying, if you're going to apply that metric across the board, you have to apply it evenly and equally. And you will find, if you take all of your prejudice out of your mind here, that they're equal across the board, all the way across the board. All of the protagonists are either
Ray with an A
overpowered or not.
Then it goes away. Like if it's a dude named Ray, no problem, no Mary Sue, right?
Absolutely.
Well, let's just say they hate on Ray for being overpowered, but most of them, their favorite character is Star Killer. So,
So,
anyways, you were gonna say.
So, people have said that she was overpowered. They've said that from the very beginning. But The Force Awakens, she does a single mind trick. Fails the first 2 times.
Yep.
So she does finally get it. And fights Kylo Ren, who got shot in the stomach with a gun that just murks people, sends them across the whole goddamn
right.
And he also wasn't trying to kill her at any point, but
no, he was trying to train her.
So that doesn't seem overpowered to me, especially when you watch any other Star Wars movies or the prequels. Second movie, the only thing she did with the Force really was move rocks, which we've already long since established that the only limit is your mind. The only reason Luke couldn't lift the X-Wing was because he didn't think he could do it. And so if you don't have that, then you can. And if you have time to focus, right, you're not in active combat at the moment. Then yeah, you should be able to do it. I haven't seen her do anything that was more powerful than any other Jedi in anything, really.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything.
The only thing that I can think of where I could actually say maybe I agree with it a little bit would have been her being able to use Force Heal. Or her, and I'll explain why I don't think it's a problem, but I'm just saying.
The Jedi texts!
As playing devil's advocate, I'm saying I could possibly understand why people might think that's overpowered. But again, yeah, like you said, she had those Jedi texts, and what I think a lot of people fail to realize is those Jedi texts are things that Obi-Wan Kenobi never saw. Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, never saw. So those techniques and those tricks, they were hidden from the Jedi. Only the highest ranking officials were able to read those texts or were allowed to know those secrets.
Mhm.
and she had access to them. Things that, again, even the Chosen One never saw. So
As far as we know, even Yoda didn't, right?
I think Yoda did, because Yoda was probably the one who Yoda's problematic in a lot of ways for a lot of reasons, but he
It's been
withheld
around
a
a
lot of
while.
information.
It's been around
He
the
knew
block.
he knew just about everything, but he didn't trust anyone with information.
Right, but
So-
one of the complaints is also like, how can Force ghosts catch objects and cause lightning? And I say,
Oh yeah,
like
that one's super
there's always
obvious
been
and
new
easy.
things that happen in these movies. They didn't even know Force ghosts were a thing until the 6th season of Clone Wars.
Uh-huh.
And then he just started to learn about it from Qui-Gon Jinn.
So
The fact that Anakin had no idea, I even did a clip on this where he's like, as far as we know, you have no identity after death. Like that was the Chosen One's belief, because that's what they had been taught, right? So knowledge grows. Like it's okay that new abilities show up.
Yeah,
And-
it's only been 60 years, you know what I mean? Around 60 or so years in their timeline since they have figured out that you can actually become one with the Force and retain your identity after death. So to think that in that 60 years, that within the first couple of years they knew everything, that's incredibly bland thinking, you know?
Yeah. There's a book from a certain point of view. It's a canon novel, came out last year, and most of it is stupid, to be quite honest. But there's 3 stories that are just incredible, and one of which is called Master and Apprentice. It was written by Claudia Gray, and it's actually before her actual novel called Master and Apprentice. But it's a conversation between Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan when he's about to meet Luke. And it's from Qui-Gon Jinn's perspective. So he hears Obi-Wan call to him, is able to untangle his consciousness from the living Force, and is actively trying to rebuild his body so that he can approach Obi-Wan, offer him comfort, and talk to him. And it explains how they can become corporeal and all this stuff. And this technique took him years to learn. Obviously, if he's teaching to other people, they'll probably get it faster than him. But it's such a beautiful story. There's three stories in that. There's that one. There's one where it's the moment that Obi-Wan dies, and it's him giving himself up to the Force, and in his mind, he's jumping in and out of different time periods of his life. And then there's another story of after he dies, he appears to Yoda and has a conversation with him. Those 3 are amazing. Other than that, I don't necessarily recommend the book. But no, there's awesome canon explanations for just about everything. And it's a wonderful time to be a Star Wars fan.
Oh,
At the same time, it's a terrible time to be a Star Wars fan. So I'm doing this hoping. The reason I'm doing this is so that we can make. We need to make a space. You know, this is like playing a MOBA, and we're the tank. We're making space for these, positive Star Wars fans to jump in and actually gain some ground and do some things. Because that's what joining TikTok showed me, is that there's actually people that love this material. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I never knew that.
There are more of us, Poe. There are more of us.
That is 100,000%. Okay, so my next question was, what were your overall feelings about the trilogy, and what was the overall message? And I had to jump to that because what you just said, that quote, they win by making us think we're alone.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, you couldn't be so.
It's
I don't know. It's like it was dirty, Like
it's the gatekeeper's mantra, man. Like that's what they do. They want you to think that nobody thinks like you, and that's one of the reasons why. Like I made a video about the ratings of all 3 trilogies. And the reason why I made that video is to show people who actually enjoyed the sequels. I'm like, look, if you don't like them, that's fine. I don't care about it, but let other people like them.
Right.
Don't sit here and try and make them feel like they're stupid, because I can prove to you by showing you all of the averages of the scores of the reviews of these films by both critics and audience reviews, and you're going to see that the majority of people actually liked the sequels more than the prequels, even today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's true, not just Rotten Tomatoes. I know there's a controversy over the Revenge of the Sith score, but even if you take that into account, it's higher for the sequels. You know, you look at like cinema,
on average,
whatever the cinema scores are, and some other, like several different
cinema scores,
measures.
Metacritic. I checked Metacritic as well.
I've got a video I'm working on, a whole series, probably going to be a YouTube video and several small TikToks about how like people that hate on Captain Marvel often are the ones that hate on Rey, like, and for some of the same reasons. And I think that should tell people some things. But I said it's $1 billion movie. It's like 1.2 billion or whatever it made. Oh, well, all Marvel's movies make that. No, they don't. That's way up in the upper echelon of Marvel films. And there are no $1 billion films that are hated like universally, because people don't spend their money on them. There's some that, you know, if it's the last $1 billion film in a franchise that had like 3 or 4, and then suddenly now this one's awful, like Transformers or some of those, I thought they were all pretty good in their own way, but like some people, like the scores got worse. Well, then the next film didn't make $1 billion. So like there's a franchise thing, but these movies, they make money because people like them.
Well, you cannot hit $1 billion without people seeing it more than once. You can't do it. People have to like it enough to go see it again.
And some of these I have again and again. It gets expensive though, because I've got 5 kids and I got to take them all. So sometimes I wait for the digital download for the 3rd and 4th viewings.
You're doing the Lord's work. So Jake, how about you? Overall thoughts on it? What was the overall theme, overall story?
The first time I watched The Force Awakens, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. Part of me thought, this is kind of a rehash of some of the stuff from the original trilogy, like a lot of the complaints. But I watched it a few more times and I realized there's so much more here. I watched The Last Jedi. I immediately loved it. Like, it was my very favorite, maybe film of all time to see the first time in the theater, but definitely my favorite Star Wars film. And I've seen them all in the theater. Obviously, the ones that I remember from the original trilogy is when they got re-released. But I still remember like that excitement of. I loved that Luke threw the lightsaber.
Go ahead.
There you go. I love that Luke threw the saber because it didn't meet my expectations. Remember, though, the last time he saw that was the last time he saw his hand. So I'm just saying, it was his dad's saber. There were some issues there. But
had some
there's more to it than that.
Had some baggage.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I didn't want this the last time. But, I loved how it surprised me in ways that movies never do. Like, the way my mind works, I usually know the movie within the first 10 minutes. I know what's going to happen. And it makes it boring sometimes to watch these films. And if it was so predictable, I'd just be like, man, it's a Star Wars film. Last Jedi, I loved it. But then I thought the Star Wars community was what I saw in YouTube comments, which are very toxic. And then, I thought, maybe I'm done with the fandom. But then I watched The Rise of Skywalker and I thought, this is fantastic. Like, I love this trilogy. Each movie, it got better for me. The whole trilogy got better. So I overall, I love it. I never hated any of the movies, but it's my favorite trilogy now. Like I said, I've been around a long time, and I love all the movies, but this is my favorite trilogy.
Oh, that's strong words.
I stand by them.
Yeah, I mean,
I stand by them.
I'm feeling kind of the same thing. I mean, as far as at the end of this, I got to honestly say that overall, the entirety of Star Wars is that you are what you continue to do. And there's so many characters. I relate to it in my own personal life because I've seen people make a bad choice in their life and they're just stuck in that. Oh no, this is my decision. I guess this is who I am now or whatever. And you're like, you don't have to stay this way. Just start making good decisions. And eventually the good is going to outweigh the bad. And there's always going to be light at the end of the tunnel. And overall, I mean, I would say that the prequels are actually my favorite trilogy, which is weird because my top three is 5, 6, 8. But still, I just overall, just the overall message was just, you know, beautiful for me. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
I like all the trilogies, and there's nothing wrong with somebody having a different opinion.
For me,
that's what I love about positive Star Wars fans.
Absolutely.
You can all like different stuff and be fun about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, because, yep. And, you know, for me, I think, you know, my first reactions were very similar to Jacob's. I went and saw The Force Awakens, and I was like, oh, I can't say blown away, but man, I was excited. Like, it definitely it turned the wheel for me to really want to be back into Star Wars again, like loving it. And, you know, yeah, it did feel like it was a little bit of a rehashing, but to me, it felt like it was that in a good way, like a poetic George Lucas, it's like poetry, it rhymes kind of way, where I'm like, it's not the exact same thing, but it's setting up something that feels like Star Wars again. And, you know, so I was like, okay, cool, awesome. Then I went and saw The Last Jedi, and I had a friend who had already seen it and just he said, I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but they ruined Star Wars, they this, that, the other. Like, he was, you know, chirping in my ear before I even saw it. So I went in with low expectations. And after I saw that movie, I went to him, and he was, you know, he started complaining about it. He's like, this was wrong, that was wrong, this was wrong. And I looked at him and I said, amazing. Every word of what you just said was wrong.
People love to talk about the quotes from the prequels, and there are some good ones. But
there's great
The Last
ones,
Jedi specifically has some of my favorite quotes in all
quotable,
Star Wars now.
So quotable. But yeah, you know, the thing was, because I saw it, and honestly, you know, so many people they said that they had issues with, you know, forced diversity. Oh, this is a feminist agenda. I'm like, okay, so they put women in power, and the women were kind of hot-headed. Yeah, sure. I mean, Holdo was definitely hot-headed and made some serious mistakes. Guess what? That was the theme of the movie. Like,
the whole movie
was about
learning from failure.
Yep. And she paid for her mistakes by sacrificing herself. Like, how are you not seeing that? How are you not catching that? It was
so that one. Sorry, I do have to jump in on that one. If you don't. The whole
idea of that film was to tell us as people. Yes, go for it.
No, just I didn't expect you to stop that abruptly.
I didn't mean to freeze like that. I think that confused you a little bit.
No, so the reason I love Holdo as a character is, so I'm the nerd that just reads all of the books. And the Leia Princess of Alderaan book, Holdo is a childhood friend of Leia as they're joining like the junior like legislation club or whatever you want to call it. And Leia knows that something is going on, something's weird with her family, but doesn't have a way to prove it. And she's with Holdo because Holdo has a ship, and they too discover Crate as one of the very first rebel bases that was evacuated well before the war. So when you're watching that movie, Holdo's not telling people things because no one knows that this base exists. Only Leia and Holdo know that this place exists, and they're near it, and they don't know how these guys are following them. It's actually like really well done of like, no, I'm not going to tell you anything, because Holdo is actually oversees Cobalt Squad, which is all dead now because of Poe. So all these people that she's known for a long time died because Poe deliberately disobeyed an order, made the wrong call, got demoted. And it was trying to communicate, listen, you know, you can't just be a hothead. Like, we need leaders. We need people to make decisions. And if we fight like you are fighting, we're going to run out of resources before we can make any ground.
Yeah.
But
and Poe failed twice, big time
here's the
in
thing.
that movie.
Here's the thing.
her turn, though, was when she realized, in the end, she sacrificed herself in the same vein that Poe had. And so her overall message, overall arc, and it's amazing that in this film, even Holdo got an arc. But her arc was, yes, sometimes the sacrifice play is what you have to do if it's going to get everyone killed. But you don't ever do that if by doing the sacrifice play, you're going to get everyone killed, right?
Yeah.
So that's,
Absolutely. Back into like where I was going with it though was, even knowing all of that, I still, I still understand why people thought what they did. But I mean, the whole theme of The Last Jedi is that everyone can fail. And if we're not, and to me, I thought the biggest theme of the whole thing was unity, because all of those rebels died because they couldn't be united. They were all battling each other inside. And, again, I understand what you mean by the fact that she was making a play by not telling anybody about the base. But had she told everybody that was on the ship, not even just everybody, just the trusted people like Poe, and he would have rallied everybody, and boom, they would have got done. Mm-hmm. It would have succeeded, because they would have made sure, hey, we're not going to let anybody run off here. We're not going to let anybody do this. Hey, Poe, or hey, Finn, don't worry about trying to do this. We have a plan. This is a good plan. This is going to work. And then all that information would have never got out and gotten all the way back to. Yeah,
that's very true. Very true.
The thing was, to me, it seemed like the whole film was an allegory on communication and learning to work together instead of infighting. Because if you are infighting, you are all going to lose. If you don't work together and stay united, you're going to lose. Everybody in that film made their own mistakes.
Which is the mission of the Sith. The reason for the rule of two. That's
because they're absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Sorry,
one of my
mind,
biggest frustrations with The Last Jedi, even though I loved it, was I was like, what the heck is Canto Bight all about? And that's what everybody, I think, struggled with. That, and why didn't Holdo just tell the plan? Like, they could have just told him the plan.
Yep.
But like Kev said, like, it was a whole lesson in failure, and Yoda gives that key to the movie. Like, there's so many lines that are keys to unlocking parts of the meaning of that movie.
The greatest teacher failure
is. And it gives me chills to even to say that right now, because it really is. They all failed. Everybody, even Rey failed. And people that say Rey didn't fail, well, she failed to turn Kylo. She failed to save all those people. She thought she could. She got kidnapped. Totally failed against. Yeah.
She got mind
Yeah. And tortured. By Snoke and all that stuff.
Oh my God, she literally, like, her body was being wiped across the floor. Like, when you say that Snoke wiped the floor with her, you're saying it literally. He dragged her across the floor and threw her all over the room without even moving a muscle. He just sat and looked at her, and she was just going all over the place.
Right. So one of the things about the Canto Bight quest that, after I thought about it, was it's another lesson in failure. We're so used to these little side quests and these guys shooting from the hips, and everything works out.
Success.
Everything works out. Every single movie, the hero, we just know it's going to work out. And that failed. The mission completely failed. But that's part of Rian Johnson's message with this movie, was you're still going to have to pick up from a failure. So it left them in worse shape in some ways than Empire, left the rebels back then. Many, similarities there.
Most ways, to be honest.
Yeah. But then also, of course, interacting with the kids, and that whole point of, Luke has to come back and inspire, the legend of Luke Skywalker has to inspire the resistance, the rebellion again. And that was part of, that quest got to show us, it's like the sisters in, the 7th season of the Clone Wars. Everybody's like, oh, it was terrible. No, Ahsoka needed to see that stuff so she could grow, and so we could see some other things get set up. There were a couple different functions, I thought. Same thing with Canto Bight. And also the message of there's war and people on both sides profit. And there's so many different layers to it that I thought it was really good. Like, once I got my head around that.
Yeah, The Last Jedi did a really, really good job, and then I'll get to my thoughts on The Rise of Skywalker. But The Last Jedi did so many things as far as painting expanding the line between black and white, and you seeing that the gray area is so much wider than you could have ever thought before. Mm-hmm. And I think that's always been somewhat of a message in Star Wars. Like, I can't say always, because when George Lucas first started the very first film, it was supposed to be very obvious, cut and dry, black and white. But then when he, started readapting to make his own, 2 sequels and then go back to the prequels, that deviated. Like, the first film was supposed to be so cut and dry, black and white, but then he made the decision that Vader was going to be Anakin, that, all these different things. That wasn't set in stone, even in his own mind when he made A New Hope. Yeah.
No, that's absolutely true.
But
there wasn't even supposed to be a Death Star in New Hope, by the way. I've re-listened to the commentary track on that movie.
Yeah.
He's like, we weren't going to do the Death Star until the 6th one, episode 6, but we just had to have some big thing for us to go after, and we may never have made another movie, we thought. So we threw a Death Star in there. Like, that's literally what happened.
That's hilarious. But then, I thought that movie did a really good job of explaining that gray area is so much wider than you may have ever even thought.
Right.
And explaining failure, explaining humanity, how people don't stay the same forever. I mean, people people who make those complaints about Luke fail to realize that when you start going through stuff and when you start seeing the kind of things that Luke Skywalker had to see, you get kind of jaded after a while when you've been fighting the same war for decades. Yeah, I'll be honest, man. If I saw the good in my father, didn't kill him, and then he died anyway, and then all of a sudden I found out that my nephew was going to be as bad as him, I would probably be like, you know what? There's the thought in my mind. I might just want to go ahead and end this now instead of trying to figure this out again, because last time the galaxy still suffered. So right. Thinking that thought process, I get it, because I've lived a long enough life to know you don't stay the same joyous, happy, I see hope and faith in everybody as you do at a younger age.
You mean like a 22-year-old is different than like a 60-year-old in their opinions?
Maybe.
As my grandfather said to me, I've been your age and you've never been mine. So,
exactly.
It does make a difference.
So, and then when I went to see, I'm not going to lie, but when I went to see The Rise of Skywalker, I loved it. I have, and to this day, I have very, very few complaints about The Rise of Skywalker. I never had an issue with them bringing back Palpatine, because I completely understand that it doesn't negate Anakin's sacrifice, because you don't have to kill. Okay, he did kill him, but even if that was the same Palpatine and he somehow had lived and it wasn't a clone that he transferred his consciousness to, you don't have to kill somebody to overthrow them. He still succeeded in fulfilling the prophecy. Right. So I never had a complaint with that. That never bothered me. But there were some other things that when I watched it, I just felt like when I saw it in theaters, I felt excited, relieved that it was all, a nice tie out and nice ending. But I was like, I felt let down, not in a big way, but a little. Then I watched it again and again and again, and I have fallen in love with that movie. Like, it is not bad to me in any way, shape, or form. Some of the things that I wish that they would have done, that they probably could have done a little better, especially because this is something I'll never forgive them for. And I'm not being toxic, but I will never forgive them for this. Why would you not put Hayden Christensen and Adam Driver as Force Ghosts at the end with Luke and Leia? Why not have all 4 of the Skywalkers that we've seen? That would have made that ending scene. I guarantee you, all these people who were upset about Anakin, upset about, losing Ben and everything else, just seeing their Force Ghost show up, they would have been like, greatest movie ever, we're good. So that was like one of the few things that I feel like they could have done better there, but that does not ruin the movie for me at all.
They would have needed to set up Anakin.
We can nitpick anything that we want.
Because she's never seen Anakin, so they would have had to set him up more, but he at least spoke to her. I mean, I think having the Force Ghost appear might have been helpful, but then...
Oh, yeah, because it would have connected... Well, yeah, but in the same sense... Of
course, how would you show Ahsoka and Kanan?
Well, but the thing is, they put
Palpatine in it. And
the only thing that I will say that is a way to, and you obviously know I'm not arguing with you, but my only counterpoint to that is Luke definitely didn't ever see Hayden Christensen's Anakin, and they put his Force Ghost in there at the end when they retooled it. Now, you recognized him, but even if they hadn't,
Brandon has a video on this one, I think, right?
I do, but I just want to say, as a little kid watching Return of the Jedi, I had no idea who that was. I was like, I don't know who that guy is.
I didn't either, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
but at the same point, Luke had only ever seen his father in the Vader suit, and when he took, you're not,
and as Mr. Potato Head.
You're not going to recognize somebody by this. You know what I mean? So,
and with digitally removed eyebrows, but
yeah.
Burn victim Billy Joel, yeah.
Honestly, I think that he looks better without the eyebrows. I think he looks better without the eyebrows, not going to lie. It seems like a waste of money, and I will agree with that one. They definitely spent way more money on removing his eyebrows than it was necessary. But I do think that it actually improves it. I think he looks better. And I think it makes a lot more sense for somebody who was, burned in a volcano.
Right. Another thing I think about Luke in The Last Jedi that pissed a lot of, prequels lovers off was Luke's commentary on the entire Jedi Order during the Republic. He just really...
Best part.
Right. He just very, tersely just is like, Palpatine rose to power, Sith Lord rose to power under the auspices of the Jedi, or whatever, however you said it, just the hubris. He used that term at least twice, and just that. But that commentary was accurate. That's the whole point. And now we see people coming out like, well, yeah, it's really the Jedi's fault that Anakin fell. No, it was Palpatine and Anakin being sort of weak-minded, but Palpatine corrupting him, grooming him since he was 9. But the Jedi were culpable a little bit, right? There were dedefinitely some things that could have been better.
No, the Jedi absolutely had a huge part to do with that. I mean, look at look at how much of a jerk Mace Windu was, all the time. And that was...
Hey, listen. Did he say anything that was wrong?
No, he didn't. That's the point. He was spot on.
Was he wrong?
No. I do not grant you the right to master. Have a seat.
I will never, ever, I'm sorry, but I will never forgive Mace Windu. Especially, I could have let all that go because, Anakin was a whiny brat. That's fine. But the moment that in Clone Wars, he looks at Ahsoka and says, sorry, citizen, that's for the council to discuss.
That was her word, though, right?
Get out of here.
That was her word, though.
She started.
I know that was her word.
Yeah, she started.
I know that was her word. But that was he said it condescendingly. She said it as not yet. I'm not.
And she said, I understand. I understand.
I know because she's humble and he's a douche. That's what it is.
Man, people hate on Mace for that. I thought I would have said the same thing as Mace because I've had to be in that position before. Somebody wasn't part of the group and by their choice, and I had to exclude them.
I get that. Don't get me wrong.
The only reason that good cop works is because you have bad cop. You have to have good cop and bad cop.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. It was the coldness of how he did it. See, I don't have a problem with, Yoda probably would have said the same thing, but Yoda, before he ended the call, called her Padawan. Like, he called her by what she used to be to him. As where, you know, yes, Mace used the same word that she did, but it sounded so much more condescending.
It did. It really did. True.
It was
Can't argue
that. Moments.
And that's where I'm at. Like, had he just said, you know, I am sorry, but that's information that, you know, since you've left, we can't exactly share that with you. So
Luke's commentary, I think, was spot on. Back to that point.
Yes, agreed. Sorry, we really got off on that. I apologize.
We did get off a little bit, but no, I enjoyed it. Just to share a little bit of my own experience is before The Force Awakens came out, I went to Star Wars Celebration 2015, I believe it was, in Anaheim. And that's the best con I've ever been to. I had the most fun.
That's awesome.
I live in San Diego now, and the only reason I live here is because of the friends that I made at that convention. And awesome. those connections. And like, so I just have a warm memory of The Force Awakens because of that, right? Yeah. That was that's where the trailer was released at that midnight viewing and stuff, where JJ brought pizza for everyone in line and all that stuff. So that was awesome.
That's really cool.
For me, I mean, The Last Jedi was by far my favorite of the sequels. Mm-hmm. It housed all, in my opinion, all of the character development for everyone in all the films. With the exception of maybe Leia. She actually had a lot of character development in Rise of Skywalker, which was awesome considering the unfortunate circumstances.
I know.
But
the fact that they were able to add character development to somebody who wasn't even there to act, like they were able to find enough clips to just make it work. And okay, sorry, back to your point.
No. That was
It's so easy. You bring up the late Carrie Fisher, and that spawns conversation immediately among Star Wars fans, and it's always good conversation.
Star Wars Celebration 15. I went to a panel with Carrie Fisher, and there was a guy in the audience, and he said, "You promised me at a previous con that we'd get a picture together, and we never got one. Can we get one right now?" That guy climbed on the stage, posed for a picture, and then Carrie Fisher started making out with him. And I will never forget it.
Carrie Fisher's like, all right, fine, I'll do you one better. That's exactly who Carrie Fisher was.
She crawled all through his neck beard and everything. Like it was a unforgettable moment. Like I love Carrie Fisher.
She helped make Star Wars, the original movies, fantastic. Like, it wasn't just her, but like when she would just take George Lucas's scripts, and I've seen some commentaries on this, like just rewrite them, like be marked all up. Like she thinks I should say this, and Han should say this. I mean, we know from the prequels, his dialogue skills aren't 100%. Some of them were fantastic.
Well, I don't like Sand either.
It wasn't perfect, but the dialogue in the originals was just really fun. I don't know.
No, it was spot on. Yeah. No,
There's a fun fact about Leia though that
it's only because I'm so in love with you.
That right? No, let's not go there. A fun fact about Leia that I didn't know until I watched the commentary or the what do you call that, documentary on the Rise of Skywalker, was that when Leia reaches out to Ben and saves him, and then she dies, that was her Jedi trial. So she actually completed her Jedi journey at that point, which is, of course, the death of her son was at the end of the journey, just like she told Luke back when she was training. So there's so many ways that those things connect, and that just really warms my heart to know that she at least finished that journey.
Yeah, oh, man. No, there's just so much. So like, like I said, I really enjoyed, TFA. Me and a good friend of mine, we literally drove around. We found the best IMAX theater that you can for someone who lived in Northern California, which was in San Francisco, in order to see it again. Just had a blast with it. And then The Last Jedi came out, and I was shocked when I heard that people didn't like it. Right. I was utterly shocked. I was like, wait, what? I saw people like, I tore down my posters and all this stuff. I'm like, but why? It
spent
blew my
money on
mind.
those.
I have a theory about that, and I don't mean this. Okay, maybe I do a little bit disparagingly.
I like where
but
this is going.
I feel like some of us that loved it so much have been so invested in these stories and just in our life in actual nerd culture in terms of we're smart people. I think that if there's one weakness of The Last Jedi, it's that it didn't dumb things down enough for general audiences.
Yeah.
Because
I hate saying it too. It's too cerebral.
Right. Rian Johnson just had so many just great moments and things that really made me think, but I can understand why people who don't think as much, I don't know a better way to put that, but that maybe aren't into the cerebral stuff.
You're completely right. You're completely
like the whole,
right.
like, it was bad writing. I always ask people now, so what qualifies you to tell what is bad writing? Because I've actually studied narrative criticism as part of my college degree. I've studied communication and storytelling and things like that. I think the writing throughout the sequels, and the more that I watch it, I just feel like it's so fantastic. Like every little thing that they complained about, either JJ or Ryan gave us very clear, like, here's the scene, like he's bleeding out in the snow. Let's focus the camera here for a couple of seconds so that Kylo's hurt. But everybody misses that for some reason. I don't get that.
Well, and here's the thing too. I'll expound on that because I've said it this way to several people. The problem that the sequels had wasn't actually a problem at all. It's just everybody who went to see the sequels, and I'm not taking a flaming dump on the prequels here, but you can easily look at the prequels and realize the prequels use dialogue to spoon feed you every ounce of information you are going to possibly need. So if
what are midi-chlorians?
Exactly.
Well,
so here's the thing. Let's put it this way.
Exposition is a thing, but yeah.
A great way that I think I want to say that it was my brother that said this at first. But like when we first, it was right after we saw The Force Awakens. My brother straight up said to me, he's like, I love the direction that they're taking this in because it feels more like they're letting you think rather than spoon feeding it to you. And if you look at it, like that scene where he's beaten on his side, where, Kylo, he's hitting his wound. Well, those of us who know things about Star Wars know what he was attempting to do and failing at because he was conflicted. He was trying to access the Sith power of harnessing his pain to give himself more strength and more power. But he was so conflicted that it wasn't working.
It's not going to work.
We can see that. We can see that.
If you're bleeding out, you got internal injuries. That pain's not going to channel anywhere, but
exactly.
More pain.
Well, anywhere but more pain, and he's literally subconsciously using the Force to hold his insides together. So, but the thing is, and not only that, but he's not even a true Sith. So, like,
which he actually. When in the novelization of Rise of Skywalker, when he interrogates Chewbacca, the very first thing he says to him is, I remember you shot me in the stomach. That's the reason I lost to that girl. That's literally how he starts that interrogation. But continue.
Yeah. But the thing is, so like, you got, there's so much evidence. It's all there. But my brother is sitting there and he made a great wisecrack. He was like, I love George Lucas, but if he had written that scene, he would have had Kylo sitting there hitting himself going, I am doing this to get stronger. I am doing this right now. I need to channel my pain. He would have expounded on it with dialogue instead of just letting it be a thing.
He would say, I don't like snow. Sorry.
I don't like snow.
He would do that, but it would be faster.
Frozen, irritating.
Right. I don't like snow.
Yes.
And then
nachos. Anyway.
Now, when I did get up to
sorry, Adam Driver yelling is just a whole mood.
I love Adam Driver. But
he's great, fantastic.
When I watched The Rise of Skywalker for the first time, You know, like you, I actually found myself a bit disappointed, and it was only because there were certain scenes that felt to me like they were
Rushed?
written not rushed, or there were certainly things that felt rushed, but that was kind of artificially rushed to try and build drama. Not, it didn't need to be rushed, but there are certain things like where, you know, Palpatine has returned and everyone gasped and all this stuff, but the question is, like, how do you know Palpatine's a Sith? I mean, Luke found that out, unfortunately, and he's the only person that did. You know, there were certain things in the film that it felt like you had to have watched the films to know, you know? And that was my biggest complaint, but that's why, you know, that's why I went to go see it again.
Yeah.
And it's also why, you know, I for every single one of these movies, I read the novelizations because you guys probably haven't seen it yet, but I actually posted a video on that before we jumped on.
Oh, nice.
The thing that you don't ever get, you can't get in a movie, is a person's inner dialogue. And if it's someone that is conflicted or indecisive, you don't get, you know, this isn't Scrubs. You don't get their inner monologue to walk you through what's happening. And that's why I love these novelizations.
Oh, that would be that'd be hilarious. That would be so funny.
The Stars of Scrubs. I would watch that for sure.
I would love watching a show that revolved around like the characters of like at least a character of the First Order walking around on Starkiller Base in the style of Scrubs. That would be funny. That would be grade A comedy.
Like Matt, Undercover Boss.
Yeah. That, but a whole show.
Yep.
After
the radar tag.
After seeing the other, you know, and understanding what was the full scope of what was happening, the other thing that I actually can't forgive. Don't get me wrong, love the movies. Can't forgive that Palpatine's actual message was not in the movie.
I know, it was revealed on Fortnite. Oh my gosh. Fortnite of all places.
It could have been revealed on the show Resistance. Or
it could have been revealed. Okay, it could have been revealed. Well, Resistance hasn't quite caught up to that part yet, so that I can kind of understand that. But here's what if you're gonna reveal it in a video game,
Battlefront 2?
At least make it a canon video game. Reveal it in Battlefront 2. Especially considering that Battlefront 2's entire campaign mode kind of paved the way for that story.
So those were my big things, but honestly,
I agree with you.
In the grand scheme of things, that's nothing. That's nothing compared to the actual story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I still feel, you know, Luke is still my favorite character of the trilogy, but Adam Driver was amazing. And,
I know.
I love to hate that.
The fact that
as Kylo.
Yeah, but then when he became Ben, you love to love that guy. Like he finally released and came back and had
when he did that Han Solo shrug, like, let's go.
This is the thing, and you know what? People love to hate on the lightsaber fights of the sequels. But this is the one thing.
It's literally my next video.
Remember,
it's my next video.
But here's the thing: people don't seem to remember or understand. I'm like, all of those forms died with Order 66. Like, these are not refined Jedi at the height of their prime like you had in the prequels. In the prequels, it was flashy and big. That was done artistically on purpose. They were not supposed to be refined. They were supposed to be raw power.
Right.
Which is why it was just wild swings and hard hits. That's why.
But all the people that hate on Rey for being terrible with a lightsaber, and then they say she's overpowered and good at everything. I'm like, they intentionally made her bad with a lightsaber because her were from a staff. Now some people say those they're totally different. I've never heard an actual weapons expert tell me that they're totally different. I actually have my 2 sons and my wife teach Kung Fu, like they're instructors, and they're weapons experts. Yeah. They say
but this is like 6 feet, and this one is like 3 feet.
Right, exactly.
I don't know how this works.
One's a laser.
And that's the best thing about that is another video that I saw was Crime Time. I forget what his numbers are, but his name's Ryan. So I think it's like Crime Time 96 on TikTok. Dude is hilarious, but he's a black belt. Like, he knows this stuff.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
And he goes, it was so funny. He picks up a staff and he's holding it and he's like, somehow in all of your minds, you think that somebody who's good with this, and he spins it around, then he sets it down and he goes, you think that they're going to pick up one of these, and he picks up his lightsaber and he goes, you think that they're just going to be like, what the f do I do? And it was so funny. I laughed so hard at his video, but he's like, guys, he said, you don't always necessarily, he said, training and knowledge just from straight up fighting, he said, you think it's not going to transfer over, but it does. And he says, and it does to a point where I have not been trained with weapons, but at the place where I work, my employment, I have a black belt that is not in weapons, but I've transferred that knowledge to using weapons and integrating them into my combat style to the very point that they tell me to teach weapon choreography. He said
he gets paid to do that.
It transfers. He's like, I literally this is my job. I get paid to do these things now.
So there's a future video. Transfer. There's a future video of mine. I've ordered my first lightsaber, and it's going to get to me next week. Now, mind you, I am not relevant how, but I'm proficient in nunchucks.
Oh, nice.
As such, I feel very confident that I'm going to be able to perform my saber swings very well right out of the box. So I'm going to do the whole thing in one take. We'll see if the knowledge transfer works. We'll see. Maybe I'm super wrong and I'm an idiot. I don't know.
I sincerely doubt you're going to be wrong.
But
yeah, you can see a video that I put out of my sons. I gave them both their first lightsabers for their birthday recently. And I said, now this is the first time they've ever picked one up. And they start doing the Obi-Wan spin. Like
instant Obi-Wan.
They
right out the box.
Have weapons experience. Like, it's really good. So
yeah.
Proof that it transfers. And in the visual dictionary, another point about books, the visual dictionary makes it very clear she was proficient in staff because she defended herself all those years. And they even show that in the movie. Like, I don't know how they could make it this any clearer. They put up a scene where she beats those 2 big guys up. And Finn was like, whoa. And we were all like, whoa.
And then she rocks Finn.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, in the visual dictionary, it says, these melee weapon skills do transfer. Like, they made that very clear in case you didn't know and you read the book.
Yeah.
So overall,
on top of that, we're talking about a fictional universe anyway. So like
with space physics, like wizard physics that aren't real physics.
It's different. It's different than watching an anime in a video game where they require skill points. You know what I mean? Like that's a side point. But I'm watching Bofuri right now, which is subtitled. I don't want to get hurt, so I put all my points in defense. It's actually pretty good. Overall, though, I want to get your ideas on the takeaways and the positivity that we want in the community, and just kind of your overall thoughts on that.
Well,
Kevin, you want to go
personally, what you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Go for it.
So wait, who talks first? Do you talk first? I talk first.
Always talk first.
It's kind of hard to understand with the apparatus.
Yeah, I love it.
It's so
There's always been humor in Star Wars, by the way.
I know.
I'm going to make a video where they talk about, but it's over the top, like localized, contemporary humor. What about C-3PO's head being drugged? And he's like, this is such a drag.
I'm
so beside myself. Like 2 one-liners right together. And I'm just like,
right next to each other. And that has never been, I'll get to my point in just a second, but that has never been more clear to me how much the sequels actually fit the Star Wars feel, the vibe. They fit it perfectly. Okay, so when I hit 30K on TikTok, I asked everybody what they wanted me to do for a celebration, and somebody said, watch all the movies on live stream. And I was like, that is a great idea. I will do a 24-hour live stream and sit and watch all the movies. And I did. And I did. And I did. And honestly, watching them all in one day, straight all the way through, I'm like, this story just continues. It doesn't feel any different. The vibe is not off. Everything just flows. And it really does. I think a lot of people miss that because they've taken so many years in between when they watch the last ones. So they forget all these little tiny details of all the, the one-liners, the jokes, and everything else, and they sit and nitpick this stuff. Oh wow, my brain just redirected so hard to another video idea that I'm working on for relatively soon.
And that's perfectly fine. I just want to add, one thing that I hear people say is out of place is the whole Canto Bight bit. But my argument is the darkest movies, if it's made for a large audience, the darkest movies have the most humor, typically.
Yeah.
Right? In order to do the juxtaposition. Canto Bight was the juxtaposition to the cerebralness of the rest of the story. It was important for that.
Yep. And not to mention the things that they mostly complain about Canto Bight, but yet they love the prequels. And the Canto Bight scene was the closest thing to the prequels that we've seen since the prequels. Like, just visually. It didn't work.
Yeah. No, and Clone Wars, their side mission didn't work. And in Empire Strikes Back, their side mission didn't work. I don't know. But go ahead. I was trying to give you some space to think of what you were
no, exactly. The video idea, and then I'll get into my actual thoughts. But the video idea that came to me the other day was, everybody likes to say that Rey had no character arc because she was the same from the beginning all the way to the end, and that's objectively false. But even if it wasn't objectively false, because they say they're like, she had the same moral compass the whole time. It never really shifted,
Moral compass.
And I'm like, okay,
change for you to grow.
She was fighting with turning evil the whole time.
Yeah, that's true too.
Go ahead.
I'm devil's advocating, but here's the story that I'm going to say is, so you mean you're saying Rey right now, but are you sure you're not talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Snap.
Because let's be real, you're saying that's a problem for Rey to have the same moral compass no matter what happens, that her actions never have any consequences to her. I mean, they have consequences, but she lost this, that, the other, but it never changed her.
And she didn't lose any limbs, but again, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right. Yeah,
I compare them all the time because
Obi-Wan
they're two of my favorite characters.
Oh yeah,
for the same reasons.
Agreed. Same here. But here's the thing:
Obi-Wan lost his master. He lost his student. He lost the love of his life that he would have left the Order for.
Yep.
Maul, the person that killed him, also died in his arms.
Oh wait.
He lived in exile for how long?
Wait. So, and here's a parallel that nobody's talking about. So, Maul killed everybody that mattered to Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan cradled him when he died. Who else did that happen with? Maybe Rey watched Ben kill his own father, who had become a father figure to her, watched all of these terrible, vile things, then tried to reach out to him again, actually did reach out to him, almost was killed by him, and then he died in her arms, and she cradled him the same way that Obi-Wan did with Maul. So, don't tell me there's no arc there, because if there's no arc with Rey, then there's no arc with Obi-Wan.
I mean, at the beginning of Last Jedi, she was like, Kylo's turned. It's not your fault. He's completely evil. There's no way he can be saved. And then there's light in him. He can be saved. Like there's changes even in that film.
Well, and then that's another reason I said the overall message is that you are what you choose to be, is because that light that was in Vader, was that always there? My answer is no, because all right, so as a child, Anakin, it's all light. Now, when you're murdering hundreds of people and younglings, it's probably all dark. I'm just
all dark.
I'm just
There's
saying.
There's not a lot of gray area left when you're sitting here slaughtering children. Yeah. Let's just be real.
Obi-Wan and Yoda saw video of him doing this, and Obi-Wan fought him. Obi-Wan fought him.
Mm-hmm.
He was like a brother to him. He didn't see any light. Now, after all is said and done, and time has progressed, and Anakin is regretting things that he's done, maybe he wishes he could have had a different life, but because of Palpatine's positioning, Palpatine positioned himself that he was the only person that Anakin had, right?
Yep.
Anakin, from birth, he had his mom, he had the Jedi, he had Padme, right? Mom's dead, Padme's gone, Jedi's eliminated, he only has Palpatine.
Kid died, he thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's why there was no light in him. It wasn't until in between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back that there is this kid named Skywalker who's strong with the Force. He finds out that's his son. That's where the light started. That's where it came from.
It's the catalyst.
That wasn't there before.
Yeah.
So when Luke looks at Ben had made his decision. There was no light there. The reason that he could see light in Darth Vader, like the Scourge of the Galaxy, was because there was light there. The reason he didn't see it in Ben is because it wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
You know, it's what you choose.
Right.
He was the catalyst. I would argue and say, I'm using argue very loosely. You already know that. But I would position or counterpoint that I believe that it was there, but it was so far buried that nobody could see it. Like Anakin was still there. Anakin was always still there.
Yeah, they were still clouding that whole vision. Like Luke may not have even seen clearly Kylo. He's seeing what Palpatine / Snoke wanted him to see.
Well, so in the Rise of Kylo Ren comic, Ben even comments. He's like, "There's all these people just see me as a weapon or as a legacy, right? You know, I'm a Solo, or I'm a Skywalker, or I'm the son of my mom who's a princess. You know, my name Ben is after Obi-Wan Kenobi. Nothing in my life is my choice." That's why he rebelled, and he even lumped Snoke into this. That Snoke also only saw him as a legacy to be exploited.
Right.
And that was his
he saw him as the next Darth Vader, which Snoke even says later on, right before Kylo decides to just absolutely wreck him. Ooh, that's another fun topic. How about this one? I know we have gotten off subject several times here, but this is actually a really fun one too. So somebody asked me a while back. They asked me to make a video, and then I forgot until right this second right now. But the question that they asked was, how is it that Snoke was so able to overpower Kylo and able to overpower Rey, and he was just this omnipotent being, but then all of a sudden, right out of nowhere, Kylo is able to trick him. I'm like, because he revealed himself. That, to me, that makes sense. See, Kylo didn't realize he was reading his thoughts or implanting thoughts any of that period of time. He didn't know yet. But once that was made clear to him, Kylo was strong enough to turn the table, and he was always strong enough to do it. He just didn't know it was happening. So once he knew it was happening, he was able to, twist his own vision while doing something completely different. So Snoke would see the wrong thing and not expect him to do it, to kill him instead.
And there's that, and there's also additionally there's a comic that actually goes along with that. And that is it's actually the Snoke comic, which is not about Snoke, pretty much at all. But in the comic, Snoke takes Ben to Dagobah into the same cave that Luke did, and you can actually kind of get a lot of information about how they felt about each other from their interaction. Where it was just really good. I recommend reading it. But when Ben goes into the cave, he gets a vision of fighting Luke, and he defeats Luke. And then right after he defeats Luke, just the same as Luke's vision was of Vader, he defeats Luke and then pops in his parents. And that's where he does the same exact trick, where he ends up destroying some like roots and stuff instead of killing the visualization of his parents, and then uses the Force to pretty much blow up the whole Force tree and leave and claim that he completed his test. But yeah, he started tricking Snoke a lot earlier,
Yeah.
The documentary says some interesting things about Kylo's journey and Vader's journey. And up to the point where they turned, Anakin and Ben actually had a lot of parallels in that, for one, they lied to Ben. Well, they concealed the truth about Vader and Anakin. And he found out because somebody had, released that information to hurt Leia. And so, he realized, and he was already 19 or so at the time when all this happened. And he felt lied to his whole life. And then he had already been poisoned, somewhat. And so just much like Anakin's journey. But once they became their Dark Lord, whatever selves, Darth Vader versus Kylo Ren, their journeys actually are inverted, where, like you said, Vader starts completely in darkness, completely resolute. He has nowhere to go but up. And over the course of the original trilogy, he becomes conflicted to the point where he finally turns. Kylo's the other way. Yes, the darkness was there, and Luke could see that it was going to end in complete darkness when he saw that vision in his head. But then he actually started very conflicted when he killed his father, and he's just torn apart until he gets to the point where he's fighting Rey and beats her until Leia calls out to him. He's completely dark at that point, and Kylo Ren had to die. Ben was healed, and he came back as Ben, but it's just really interesting to think about how their journeys were inverted. Yeah,
and that's why I just loved him as a character. It was just such a unique character. It's very clear that he was loosely based off of Jason Solo from Legends, even to some descriptive parts about how he'd enter a room and things like that. But who he was as a person was utterly unique, and Adam Driver really, really brought that home.
Yeah, I think he did phenomenal job. And I agree with your take on the whole. It's about who you choose to be. It's not about who your DNA and your bloodline is. I've had people tell me Star Wars has always been about bloodlines, and I would tell them Star Wars has always been about not going with your bloodline, going with what's good. It's literally the opposite.
That's so true.
Right? So it's really about, Luke had to choose whether he was going to take on Vader's legacy, his father, or Anakin, when Anakin was different, and a good person. Although Anakin always had some darkness.
The father that he never even knew.
Right, exactly. Or was he going to choose to be his own person? Same thing with Rey. Rey never knew Palpatine as her grandfather, but then the darkness had always been in Rey too. I love that part in the novelization where she, smacks Kylo with the saber. People are like, why doesn't she cut his head off? Well, because he glances. Lightsabers have depth, and there's three-dimensional universe.
I'm literally going to make a video on that as soon as we finish here.
Right.
Actually, that was another one. That was another video I was going to make eventually too, which we could all still make the same video.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
right.
never a problem.
And then
we just back each other up. But the thing
when she does that, then that voice inside her says,
Oh, you go.
you know,
Sorry, I'm not.
yeah, that's okay.
interrupt you.
The voice insider says, you know, kill him now, because it would have been so easy for her to do it. And then it says, when it says kill him, I read do it. Like I hear that in my head. Like now I know what's going on here.
No, and
Do it.
so I got into reading all this extra material because I actually used to fix damage on used cars. And as such, I always would put in headphones, try listening to music, right? I ran out of music. Like all music. I ran out. So that's
music.
Spotify says you're done.
Yeah.
That's the end.
Music and
listened
podcasts.
to all of it.
So that's what got me into Star Wars books, because there's so many of them.
Audiobooks.
And you know, after digging through all of those books, you know, to your point, it is read in the Emperor's voice. That section of the novelization is read in the Emperor's voice.
Oh, interesting.
And I was just like, what?
Oh yeah,
what is this?
but Palpatine was never alluded to in his return. That was just shoehorned in last minute.
Yeah,
there was
no plan
planning
at all
for
the
that.
sequels. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, so that part shocked me.
Yeah.
But man, it was just. Also, if you guys aren't listening to the audio, if you guys, there's a lot of people that don't listen to audiobooks because they feel like they don't have the attention span. Star Wars audiobooks have music.
They slap.
They do voices.
Slap.
There is. Oh my gosh! It's
I prefer audiobooks anyway. I get the Kindle version of the book so I can search them, do text searches. But I also I want to get the audiobooks.
I pay for the audiobooks and then I illegally download the PDFs. I feel like I already bought them. I'm sorry.
Okay, you know what? I mean, I feel like that's a fair point, because you could do the same thing. As far as downloading the PDF, you could literally do the same thing by just like turning on dictation and letting the book
transcription technology could do it for you.
But yeah, so it's to me, yeah, you're right. You already paid them your money. It's not like you're really violating anything there. But the Ahsoka novel, I loved the audio version of that because I was like, it's actually Eckstein. It's actually Ahsoka. This is amazing. I love this. And
see, I didn't know all that. I'm gonna have to get that now.
Yeah, it's actually it's legitimately narrated by Ashley Eckstein. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, because I got it on Audible.
Then it's worth its price. I will pay for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So awesome. I just love talking Star Wars. I could talk to you guys
I think that we just legitimately inadvertently answered the question that you asked me that I got sidetracked on I didn't even start that question entirely before going on a side tangent. And now I realize I think all three of us inadvertently answered that question just by having that conversation.
Yep.
It's
one of the things I love so much about Rey, though, to bring it full circle, is she chose to be good, even though the universe had just spat on her. That's the best word I can come up with. Over and over and over again. And some people don't relate to that. I relate to that because I haven't always been anywhere close to perfect, but in some bad situations, I've always felt like I've got to do what's right and what's honorable here. That's why I love Obi-Wan so much. But I just love Rey's character. Like, yes, she struggles. She's impetuous. Like, she went straight for the dark in The Force Awakens, and there are other things that she did despite all the warnings that she got, just because she's got to know something. But you know how to use this? She's like, yeah, you pulled the trigger. He's like, there's a little more to it than that. Like, she's always thinking, she's hot-headed. You don't see that, but she's still trying to do the right thing. And as she grows and learns, she learns some patience. She learns some things. I love that about her character so much.
And along with that, there are things that, for some reason, just leave it unspoken. For some reason, there are times where there are actions that people might assume that I would do.
I gotcha. I pick up what you're putting down, buddy.
I'm gonna feign ignorance here.
No, there's times where, you know, for certain reasons, I would be assumed to go down a specific path, and it's not my path. I don't care what you would assume or think. I care about what I want and who I am as a person. I relate to Ray a lot in that facet of it's not what you're born with, it's what you choose. And so
absolutely,
I actually love that. I think that's the positivity that we really need in this community. And I don't know why, you know, resistance is futile. It's gonna happen, you know. Just we see how much more positive content is coming about this in the next you know, in the past couple months.
Now I just remembered what the question was that we accidentally bypassed in that conversation, and I was wrong a couple minutes ago. We did not answer that question. Your question was about how we view the community, or what we're excited for in the community, you know, in the coming days, or if that's, I'm getting that right? Isn't that what it was you were trying to ask? So to me, it really relies on, and TikTok is one of the few things that has shown me this, because same thing as what Jacob said earlier. You go on YouTube, you go in Reddit, you go in Twitter, most specifically Twitter, which I don't even have because I'm avoiding it, but I have enough secondhand knowledge to know that if you're a Star Wars fan, just avoid Twitter because it's an endless black hole of despair. But the thing is, once I joined TikTok and realized how many, like, you know, me and Jacob are in the group of Balanced Force, and when we put that together, I was not expecting in any way, shape, or form. Well, I say we put that together, but it was a whole communal effort. Like Shy 270 Jordan, he just threw the idea out, and magically the people who gravitated towards it were all the wholesome people. Like, everybody was the wholesome people, and it was amazing. So, you know, we melded together and just kind of found a wholesome, happy family where we all enjoy different aspects of Star Wars, but we all encourage everybody to enjoy what they enjoy. And when people get gatekeepy and toxic in comment sections, we go and fight them. We will shut them up, or we will make them talk louder until they reveal how ignorant and stupid they sound. You know, we all started standing up for each other, defending each other, and just loving on each other. And somehow, some way, I realized what I said earlier: there are more of us, Poe, more of us. And that's what I'm excited to see. Like, I am so proud of the Star Wars community, because those toxic fans are not the majority at all.
They're just
the
loudest.
They are the very loud minority of our fans. They are so loud. And the fact is, finally, through TikTok especially, I have seen those who used to just back down and, okay, fine, whatever, or walk away from the fandom entirely. We've all started banding together, and we're showing them that, hey, you're allowed to have your
opinion. On your left.
That is fine. Yeah, on your left.
I love that. Yeah.
But seriously, like, we have started to stick together, and I am so proud of the community for what I've been seeing happen. And
it's literally why I wanted to do this, you know, put this together.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, why don't we go ahead and wrap things up? We'll start with J. Kev. Where can everyone find you?
So I am on Twitter, unlike Kev. J. Kevin Parker. Pretty much all the socials, I'm J. Kevin Parker. I have my first initial to make it easy, including YouTube, although my name's a little different on there. It's J. Kevin Parker, .com, like .com, which is a domain that I have. But you can just search J. Kevin Parker and you'll find me. I have one video on YouTube in that channel, but I've got lots more coming. And of course, on TikTok at J. Kevin Parker.
Nice. And you? Other Kevin?
Other Kevin? Two Kevs and a Brandon. That's the got a name for the podcast now. No, I'm kidding.
I like it.
But no, I am only on. I have a YouTube that is from ages ago that I really didn't do anything with. It's just an account. So yeah, no need to look that one up. But I am predominantly only on TikTok at a dude named Kev with underscores in between each word. So A_dude_named_Kev. And Instagram, but the Instagram is linked there, and I don't do anything with my Instagram either. So I'm pretty much exclusively TikTok. I used to do Facebook and all these other things, and then eventually I never amassed a following anywhere until TikTok. So TikTok's been the only one I've really paid any attention to.
Yep. And then I can be found at Darth Chocolate is my name on everything. On TikTok, it's Darth Choco. On Instagram, it's Darth.chocolate. It's it's a whole thing. If you want to find me on PlayStation as well, it's Darth Chocolate 7. It's whatever. I'll try to link everything and make sure everyone gets linked everywhere so you can find all of our content. Any closing words or anything?
Nope. It's been a great time.
I'd just say it's who you choose to be, including in the fandom. You know, don't be a jerk to people. Not you guys. You guys aren't, but the people that are listening. Like, you can dislike something and not crap on it, and just like let people like what they like. With so much variety in Star Wars, it's like with the MCU. Although the MCU is like more than twice as big now. There's a lot of variety on purpose because people are going to have different characters they relate to. So what if you don't relate to Rey? So what if you don't relate to Finn? So what if you don't relate to Rose or Jar Jar Binks of all people? Like, somebody might, and just let them. Just like your characters and be like, oh, that's cool. This is my favorite character. Be cool, and as long as we're doing this and we're growing as positive people, this will help us in our life to treat people better. Yeah. Because the people who are toxic fans as young kids are the ones who become the mansplainers and the other, things that dude bros that I don't like as adults that I constantly am battling in my professional life.
Yeah.
Successfully, I might add, but still, because I learned this in the Star Wars fandom. That's why everybody's like, wow, you two Kevs and Craig are so good at putting people down, like clapping back in the comments. Well, we've lived life a little bit. And we've had to do this in real life a few times. Yeah. Right. So, but it's not always about putting people down.
And we've had to get really creative with it because TikTok only allows you to say certain things. So you got to really, really finesse it.
Exactly. But we're making it an art form. And so it's not about stooping to their level, but it's using their language in a way that not only kind of puts them in their place, but helps the other fans to say, somebody's looking out for me. I can't tell you how many people have told me personally, privately or publicly, like, I feel like I could actually make Star Wars content now because I know people like you guys are looking out for us. So
literally, you guys are the reason I make Star Wars content.
It's awesome.
Literally. I joined TikTok on April 27th and was hesitant to make anything. And I saw so much positive love from both of you guys that on May 2nd, I started making content. So,
and it's great. We're glad you're sharing it because you have a lot of knowledge.
You do. Honestly, as soon as I started seeing you started hitting my For You page like quite consistently. And after it didn't take very long. Like I said, when I messaged you, I was like, dude, you've been hitting my For You so much. I thought I was already following you. I had legitimately thought that I had already followed because, like, dude, that's a common thing, man. There's so many of us who have been talking to each other after the fact, and we're like, yeah, I thought I was following you for like a month and a half. I didn't realize that we weren't mutuals yet.
Yep, same.
Yeah.
Also, all right, guys, thank you so much for coming out. I super appreciate it, and I could just talk Star Wars forever. But
same here.
My wife and my puppy aren't gonna allow me. So,
all
right. You guys have a good night.
Have a wonderful evening.
Everybody else, may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.